Peering into the world of cells is almost like travelling to another world. Making up every living thing on Earth, these tiny life forms are surprisingly complex and fascinating. So let's take a deep dive into the world of cells. First of all, let's look at some of the basic information you need to know to understand cells. Let's start by looking at modern cell theory. These three principles are the following. All living organisms are cells, whether that's a single cell in a unicellular organism, such as an amoeba, or a multicellular organism like you or me. Second is that all cells come from another cell. Cells have the incredible ability to be able to clone themselves. Finally is that cells are the most basic unit of life. Cells can be divided into two groups, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Animal, fungi, plant and protist cells are all eukaryotes, while archaea and bacteria are both prokaryotes. We'll come to look at the differences between the two cell types later on, but for now, let's look at the two eukaryotic cells we'll be covering in this video, plant and animal cells. To start off with, at the border of the cell is the cell membrane. This semi-permeable membrane is responsible for only letting certain things through, such as oxygen. Passing through the cell membrane, we come to the cytoplasm. This gel-like substance is what all the other organelles sit in, the first of which is the mitochondrion. Often called the powerhouse of the cell, these organelles produce ATP energy through a process called aerobic respiration. This is a process that involves the mitochondrion using oxygen and glucose to produce energy, which can then be used in the cell. Next are the ribosomes. These organelles produce protein through a process called protein synthesis. Proteins are very important in the cell world as they convey information around the cell as well as outside of it. Next is the nucleus. You can think of this as the cell's HQ. It controls the activities of the cell and also contains the DNA of the cell. Inside the nucleus is the nucleus, which is where ribosomes are produced. Back outside the nucleus is the endoplasmic reticulum. This organelle does a lot of processing of molecules for the cell, such as protein folding, as well as that it is also highly involved in transporting molecules around. There are two parts to the ER. The rough ER, which has ribosomes attached to it, which the proteins they produce are sent away in vesicles, which you can think of as like delivery boxes. And the smooth ER, which does a few jobs such as detoxification and can also produce a few types of lipids. Next is the Golgi apparatus. This organelle is almost like a packing center, responsible for sorting and sending molecules it receives, like those from the vesicles. Some of these molecules may be sent off to the membrane to be excreted, whilst others are sent to other parts of the cell. This, however, is where the similarities between plant and animal cells stop. Plant cells have a few additional organelles for doing stuff such as photosynthesis, which is carried out in the chloroplast. These organelles are filled with a substance called chlorophyll, which helps to absorb light from the sun and is what gives leaves their green colour. Next are the vacuoles. Although animal cells can have these, they don't tend to have a large one like the permanent vacuole of plant cells, which is used to store materials such as sap. On the outside of the cell membrane of plant cells is the cell wall. This is a rigid cellulose structure which offers another layer of protection for the cell and gives the cell support and structure. Okay then, we've now looked at both the types of eukaryotic cells that we're going to be covering in this video. Now let's look at the prokaryotic cells, of which we're only going to look at one of, the bacteria. Looking at this diagram of a bacterium, it is obvious to see the difference between them and the eukaryotic cells. One of the first things that we notice is the DNA is not contained inside of a nucleus. In fact, prokaryotic cells don't even have one. Along with the nucleus, prokaryotic cells don't have any membrane-bound organelles, such as the ER or the mitochondria. Besides that, prokaryotic cells also have a cell wall just like plant cells from earlier, and they also have ribosomes to produce protein. The bacterium we're looking at also has some tail-like structures. These are called phalangium, and although not all bacteria have them, those who do use them to swim. The world of cells really is an amazing place, and there are a whole lot of things that there wasn't time to cover in this video. So if you have an idea for a video, please feel free to leave it down in the comments below. Anyways, thanks for watching and see you next time.